Is it illegal now, or what's the deal?
Okay, so first let me start by saying that I know that you got my name from the website,
Sure.
but I am listed on the website as being the media contact for Kratom. And so I have forwarded your contact information over to our consumer line. It's a group of pharmacists, and they're well versed and familiar with this issue, and they're going to be the ones to officially call you back. But given that you had called me twice, and there was clearly a sense of urgency in your calls, I wanted to make sure that you knew that we were not ignoring you, and also just, return your call. I mean, you'll get this official information from the consumer line, but in summary, kratom is not illegal. And furthermore, if it were, the FDA does not take action against individuals. We take action against products. And so, this is the second warning that we've put out urging consumers not to use the product. And we stand by our warning, especially in light of the new information that we obtained from our scientific modeling, which is showing that the alkaloids or the compounds in kratom are in fact opioids.
Oh, they are opioids.
Yes.
See,
So they're structurally similar to opioids, and they're binding to the opioid receptors, and therefore, we're now confident in calling those compounds opioids.
we read the statement, and we were unable to find, like, my daddy's from the South, right? And so, we're no stranger to, like, when somebody's not, providing you with the details, they're just kind of telling you, please believe us because this is what it is. And we're just reading it the whole time going, okay, please show me the money. You're telling us this, but can you show us the research? Don't just expect us to believe you. And I just want to, I don't know, these guys look to me because I guess because I'm talkative or they know I'd call. I want to be able to come back with something versus just, hey, well, that's what they're telling us and they expect us to believe it and they use fancy words. You know what I mean?
No, I see what you're saying. And I mean, this is a tool. It's a computer system that was developed for the agency and that we're using. It was not just made for kratom. It's something that we've, been using, in emergency situations to see, because sometimes we need to quickly assess, what a new drug is and what a new drug isn't, if it's potentially risky. And so that's, the computational model that we developed. So we can plug things in, and basically what it does is it looks at drugs for which we already have information on, so things that are already controlled, things that we already, compare things to like morphine or fentanyl. And then it basically shows you if it's similar to that. And in the case of kratom, it was identified as being, structurally similar to an opioid. It binds strongly to the opioid receptors, which means that you need less of a substance in order, to feel, that effect. What I can tell you is that, we put out, a lot of the information, in that statement. There's, of course, additional information, particularly that was in our 8-factor that unfortunately cannot be released at this time because it is still considered to be pre-decisional. We're going to continue to work to see what can be released here. But the best information that we have right now is what we put out yesterday.
Well, I really appreciate how you explain that. And, it's true. You said that it does bind to the opioid receptor. But unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but we both know the reality is all sorts of compounds bind to the opioid receptor. And what we didn't is, that, right? And so just because the thing is, somebody who doesn't use their critical thinking skills will look at it and be like, well, by golly, it binds the opioid receptor. Shit. Right? But I'm like, well, hold on. A handful of compounds bind to that. You know what I mean? And then it goes on and it says in the statement, and it binds very strongly. Okay. So do all of the other compounds that bind to the opioid receptor. I mean, I just feel like, and I appreciate what you told me about the computer program. But the fact of the matter is, before punching those things, or even creating the computer program, the FDA already knew about the similarities, right? I'm just trying to explain it to a bunch of good old boys, right? And they just see right through the BS right away. And so they're like, well, hold on now, Tony. They knew about all these things. They knew that if they plugged them into this it would have come out like that. All of these different aspects that make it function similarly to, but not an opioid, but function similarly to, they could have just explained that. But in creating this program, now they've got they can use it as a rhetoric tool and say, hey, we made a program. We didn't need a program to talk about the similarities. Do you see what I'm saying?
I understand your point. But again, the model was not created just for kratom. It was actually created first for fentanyl.
Oh, for fentanyl.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, this wasn't something that we just, created for kratom. No. And like I said, it's serving a multi-purpose. It was first created to assess fentanyl and to fentanyl analogs that folks were seeing that we were not, familiar with. And so it's, certainly to put anything into it, but it was not developed just for kratom.
Thank you so much for telling me about that. Because I can tell them that, and you told me that before, but if that's how you want to respond, perfect. I'll make a note and let them know that. And then I noticed the FDA was telling people, hey, why don't you guys just use methadone, right? And you listed methadone and bupropion. Did I say it right? Bupropion? Buprenorphine. And the naltrexone, right? Are you familiar with the deaths associated with those?
I don't cover the other opioid products. I only cover kratom.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I don't want to interrupt you, ma'am. I'm sorry.
No. I was just, so I'm not as familiar with those other products. But I've been covering kratom for a number of years. So kratom is the one that I'm familiar with. But I know that we had also listed on there that there are other non-opioid options to treat pain. And certainly the agency is, welcome and opening to other scientific information for other products should, someone decide to come in or properly develop, the drug.
Hey, thank you so much for that. And it says that in the beginning, like the opening and the summary, that there's a scientific analysis, and when you read it, you think, oh, great, they're going to provide some evidence, right, that's at least quantitative in some form, not just, rhetoric, like, you're a comm major probably, right? Like you got into PR, so you probably had to take rhetoric, right? And so, am I right?
Sure.
I am right or no?
Yes.
Okay. Did you say yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. It's interesting, huh? And it makes us read stuff and look at this and go, damn, okay, so if they're making this claim, what are they going to have to provide later? Facts, right? They're going to have to, because what the problem is, and I just want to know what to tell these guys, because it says we've got all this scientific research and all these methods and all this, data. But then, and it sounds good, like if somebody was in a Congress and they stood up and read this and federal agencies need to act quickly, blah, blah, blah. Wow, it sounds smart. But there's nothing, none of the research is really here. It's the kind of thing that sounds like a smart person would say, you know what I mean? Or somebody went to law school or whatever. But show me the money. Can we see the research?
I'm not sure what exactly would be releasable, and certainly there is the Freedom of Information request that you could certainly submit. Truthfully, I'm not sure what all is or is not releasable, but the agency has a lot of scientists on our staff, and we conduct research all the time. Just because we don't necessarily make it public, publish, our research certainly doesn't mean that it's any less valid. But I'm not actually sure what is technically releasable and what's not. But you're welcome to, of course, file a Freedom of Information Act request, for documents and or, other related materials to that model.
Wow, thank you. So if I click on this, can I email it to you?
No, so I don't have the link handy, but I'm sure if you did like a Google search for FDA Freedom of Information, it should take you over to the there's like an online form that you can fill out. That's not something that my office processes, but that would be the appropriate way to request the information.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm gonna show the guys, and I'll probably task one of them with doing that, and I appreciate it. Have you gotten a whole lot of calls?
Not, I mean, from consumers or from reporters?
Well, I don't care. I'm just curious. I mean, because a lot of people are calling me just because they know that I use it a lot. I figured they'd be calling you like crazy.
No, no. I talk with lots of reporters all day on a number of different topics, but not too many on kratom.
Oh, also, to your knowledge, we both know actually that there has not been one death associated with kratom alone. And my only concern...
There actually has been, and I don't mean to cut you off, but that is actually noted in there in the statement that since we put out the November 2017 warning, that we actually were made aware of what we would refer to as being a clean case. And so this specific individual had no historical, no known historical or toxicological use of any other opioids with the exception of kratom. And kratom was the only thing found in his system.
So I'm glad you told me that.
One.
Yeah, thank you for telling me that, because I misread that then, because I saw that it said nobody knew about him having, done drugs or anything like that, or nobody knew if he was off his, or if he'd been experimenting with other stuff, or if he'd fallen down, or nobody knew about anything, right? Have you ever heard of a 55-year-old first offender? Happens all the time. Nobody knew they were going to break the law that day. It's their first offense, but they sure as heck did it. That's where we're concerned. We want to see the proof. Like, we want to, has anybody ever seen kratom kill anybody? That's what I'm trying to, be able to tell the guys.
And our answer to that would be yes. And again, that is something that you could also obtain via the Freedom of Information Act request. But that is something that, while our analysis is still ongoing, that we didn't release yesterday, but that is something that we are also looking to release. So we'll be providing additional information on that death as well. But again, that individual had no historical or toxicological use of any other drugs except for the opioid kratom.
So did they do a biopsy? And I'm sorry, they did
an autopsy.
Mm-hmm. And they found nothing else in his system but kratom?
Nothing else.
How did he die? Did he just drop dead of kratom?
I have no other information that I'm able to share other than, we have this one clean case. But we will be able to provide information on that soon.
Yeah, because honestly, I want to know if that's the case, because, we're open-minded. We're not just a bunch of closed-minded, people. We want to know the truth, and it looks like you've been very helpful. You called me back. You work at a government agency. That doesn't happen often. So I'm very, very much respect and appreciate your time today. Do you know when your investigation is supposed to be completed?
Which investigation?
Well,
into the death?
Well, no, ma'am. Because you said this is the beginning, and you cannot. You're holding on to some of this data and some of these research methods until the end of the what? How did you word it? The end of the.
I don't remember what exactly I said.
When I want.
we're going to continue to communicate. If you're asking about our 8-factor analysis, that has already been completed and has been with the DEA for months. And so, that part is done. This is the independent, this is the scientific research and evaluation that we're doing independent of the 8-factor. And so there's not really a time frame here, that we're working on under, as new information, comes to light, we're happy to review that and we'll continue to do so. So it's not like there's an end date that we're working towards. This is definitely something that's ongoing, and it has been, of great concern to the agency for years, as evidenced by the actions that we've taken against kratom.
That's great. You sound like you care a lot, and I do respect that. How do you'd mentioned before the opportunity to actually talk to the scientists or something like that?
Well, it would be the pharmacist line. I'm really not supposed to talk to consumers. And so I've already given you too much information. But you seemed, like I said, like you needed to urgently speak with someone, which I understand. And so you should be receiving a call back from our pharmacist.
Okay.
So it's our pharmacist that I work with. So you will be getting a call back from them because I forwarded to them both of your voicemails. Again, I'm working at home, and so that's why I'm not answering my desk line.
Okay.
But I didn't want you to think that we were ignoring, because we are, a very responsive agency. So you'll get a call back from our pharmacist who can provide you with more information.
Hey, thank you so very much. You have a good evening, and we'll talk to you another time.
Okay, thank you. Take care.
Potentially. Bye. Well, she was great. And the sad thing is she probably believes that, based on what she's been fed, that kratom is bad for you. It's pretty sad. I wish I could just give her some. But anyway, thanks a lot. And it's kind of funny. She caught me hopping in the shower, so I cruised over here. She was very sweet. She waited a long time for me to get in the studio. Again, thank you, ma'am. I think her name was Lyndsay, for the professionalism. And thank you, people, for watching this. Stay tuned. And if you're watching this on the Anthony August Larson YouTube channel, please subscribe to the Plugged In Magazine YouTube channel. All right, thank you.